Good morning, everybody. It's Saturday at 10 a.m. Yay! It's dream time. Dreams, like I said, it's going to be quite a bit of information. However, the important thing that I want to say for certain topics is it doesn't matter if what I say you believe to be true. That is one of the questions I get a lot, especially when we talk about past lives, which is going to be next week's topic. Someone once said to me, you can tell me anything, especially when we're talking about past lives. How do I know it to be true? And that was a great question, and one that no one had ever asked me before. And the response and the easy thing to that is, if what I say resonates within you, even if without an understanding, even without the hard proof that so many people would like, it just means that it feels true to you. And so when we talk about dreams, when we talk about past lives, even just what I do in general with spiritual communication, if it resonates within you, then why is that not true? So you can listen to somebody and, you can spend hours upon hours upon hours of listening to somebody, and you can get through the whole thing and be like, that was a total bunch of bullcrap. And that's the way it feels to you. If that's the way it feels within you, then that's the way it is. Or you can listen to them and then maybe get a piece of it out that resonates within you, that you take away from, that it feels right. So some of these topics I know can be kind of interesting and different and questionable. So I just wanted to put that out there, that no matter what I say, if you don't like it because it doesn't resonate within you, then you don't like it. But if you don't like it because it challenges some of the things that you've been feeling and challenges your worldview, then, sit on that and kind of see why that is the case. So just a little spiel I'm going to say from time to time when it comes to certain topics. So dreams is definitely one of those. So dreams, we're going to break this down into two parts because it's the only way to truly handle it. We have the medical side and we have the spiritual side. So I am not going to dismiss the medical side. Some people truly experience dreams because of not only their physical aspect of what's going on, but as well as physically what they need to listen to, what they need to understand, what they need to feel, where do they need to go. And we don't pay attention to ourselves on a day-to-day basis, actually moment-to-moment basis for most of us. And when we ignore our cup getting full physically, it's going to manifest in some way. Sometimes it's pain, sometimes it's stress, sometimes it's dreaming, whether they're good dreams or bad dreams, but your body is meant to do what it needs to do for itself. And when we ignore it, then it becomes even more of a challenge, and our body's going to fight back. Just like if a cup is overflowing, there's only so much I can get in there, right? Before it pours everywhere. So medically, we can have dreams that mean absolutely nothing, as science will tell you, as the medical community will tell you, or it can mean so many different things. And each individual is different, and each individual processes things completely different, regardless of the situation, the scenario, the background, the same household, whatever. We are all our own unique people. And so when we become that uniqueness, we have to look at things from that unique perspective. So it kind of ties into last week when we talked about astral projection. Good dreams from a medical perspective is a lot of times you're missing something important in the day and you need to process it. So if, for example, you had a really good positive day, everything was going your way, everything was great, and yet you didn't really process it. You went through the motions, you recognized that it was a good day, but yet you didn't fully take it in as what it was to help lower your cup. Because honestly, all of us have our cups like full. And, especially in today's world with the pandemic and the stress about finances, with also the social distancing and how much we have to stay in. And and then now that it's getting warmer, although today is 30 degrees, which is ridiculous, but, it adds a lot. So all of our cups are getting full. And so when we have a good day, hopefully that good day would start to decrease some of your stress levels. And as it decreases, your cup becomes less full. But some of us don't. We're still just so stuck in the routines and the day-to-day crap that we just can't see past that. So at nighttime, when we have a good dream, and the dream was about lots of positive things, and even the day that we had, we're dreaming about what we just went through that day, and it was all positive. It is to get you to really let it sink in. Because when we're sleeping, we're finally getting to a point where we can be at ease and where we can check out from the day, to check out from our stress, which is another reason why sleep is so important for people. But yet a lot of us have sleep issues because of various reasons. Sometimes medically, the good dreams are actually spiritual family members or spiritual guides. And when we're sleeping and we're shutting out and we're shutting down, spirits have an easier time communicating with everybody through sleep. Again, we're all born connected to the spirit world. And we all have glimpses of our abilities still shining through. For those that it's completely turned off and don't really experience anything, they usually can get some information through dreams, because again, we're relaxed, but then also through intuition. That intuition is an ability, and we all get that from time to time, even the most disconnected spiritual people in the world. So some of these good dreams could be your spirits or your spirit guides helping you process that information, or letting you know that they're okay. So you might dream about a good day with that loved one, and it's a memory for you, but yet it's being guided by your spirits or your spirit guide, so you re-experience it. So I put this with medical, because even though it's spiritual, medically, your brain is processing memories. So, it's just the spirits are helping to guide you through those things. And when they're guiding you to help you process that information, again, it's memories. It's memories from the day or the last week or the week before, or maybe even 20 years ago. Medically, when we talk about nightmares, and this is where it gets fun, right? We all hate those nightmares. The medical community indicates for those that have nightmares, and it strictly is brain-based, medically based. It is due to stress. It is due to conflicts in our life, fear, trauma, emotional problems, illnesses. Medicines can do it, can give us nightmares, as well as drugs. Medicine and drugs obviously can change our brain chemistry and then create all kinds of fear and conflict to come out within ourselves, and especially guilt and things like that. And so memories can shift from a positive thing and turn into a negative thing. Or within every positive memory, I'm sure there's a negative aspect somewhere around it. So we kind of focus in on that. And so the brain is trying to bring up stress, conflict, fear, all those things. And when it brings it up again, it's for you to process it. Your cup is full, and it's full of negative, positive, and indifferent stuff. And so it's all part of that process. Our brain needs to process it to get it healthier, because it affects the body, affects the soul, it affects everything. So if we're taking in all this energy from external stuff to make us feel a certain way, or because we processed it that way because it truly was a negative experience, a trauma, etc., then we need to process it. And when we don't, our brain will try and do it at nighttime as well. Because again, it's all connected. One big system, mind, body, and soul. Now, there are the cases where true brain injury, right? So if your brain is damaged, then obviously you could have nightmares that make no sense whatsoever. And it has nothing to do with spiritual communication. It's the brain is damaged from an actual physical injury or an emotional injury or even just a mental injury where we just overthought something to the point where it became real for us in so many ways. So a little bit of a psychosis. So it is definitely a real thing. Now, night terrors can be, from a medical perspective, due to physical brain trauma as well as medication or drugs. They kind of fit in with just nightmares, just night terrors. If anybody's experienced them, they seem more real than a dream. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. So there are so many components, and I don't want to dismiss anything I haven't talked about because there's so much information out there from a medical perspective on why people dream, why people have nightmares, why people have night terrors versus why they don't, or why they can't prove it, or why they don't understand it. And that's where that balance of spirituality and medical science, which, science and spirit is what I'm trying to, in the end, combine into one, but where we tend to dismiss one over the other. And so this is why I wanted to break this down in two pieces. So before I step into the spiritual abilities, I'm going to talk about a little bit about night terrors for those that have never had a night terror. A night terror it starts out like a dream where you're having a nightmare, but yet everything about it is so real. The way it feels, the way it smells, the way you can touch something, the way it scares you, the way it chases you, the way it feels within your world. And it's so overwhelming that you act it out in your sleep. And so if you have a partner next to you or a family member in the next room, they're woken up because they're hearing you. Maybe you're walking around banging something, punching a wall, freaking out, but you're sound asleep to them. And yet to yourself, you don't know where you are. You don't know if you're sleeping. You don't know what's happening. You may not even remember it when you wake up. And you're just exhausted when you wake up if you don't remember it. I remember my night terrors. I always have. I know my brother never did. It's just the way we're processing things, the way we're letting things go, and then how we're going into it. And most of my night terrors, it'll sound really weird, but most of my terrors was always something coming at my head, whether it was birds, whether it was spiders, but whatever it was coming down on top of me while I'm sleeping in my bed. So much so that as it's falling on me, I can't breathe. And I cover not only my head up with a blanket, which has always been my defense mechanism since I was a kid when it comes to scary things, before I had control over my abilities, but also my partner's head as well. And so that's going to wake up my partner. And then it's like, and then that wakes me up and it just becomes this whole thing. So night terrors are very, very, very vivid. Majority of night terrors, 99%, 90%, whatever percentage we want to put on it, come from spiritual abilities. And so I'll get into that when we talk about the night terrors on the spiritual side. So overall, medically, that's why we dream. All right. Mostly it's the process, things we're ignoring, things we needed to process that we didn't, to de-stress us, to reduce some conflict within ourselves, to reduce our fear, etc., etc. So spiritually, and this is where it gets fun. So spiritually, people who dream vivid, whether it's good or bad, and remember it the next day in a lot of detail, they are spiritually connected. They may not have their abilities completely turned on. They might only be a certain channel. They may only be empathic currently, or energy sensitive, or medically intuitive, or psychic, medium, or past life medium, whatever labels we want to call those different channels, so to speak. So they may not realize that that's what's happening to them. But when you can vividly remember your dream, that is 100% spiritual communication. Now, a lot of times you won't remember it maybe 30 minutes, an hour after you've woken up, after you start moving, after you start doing your day. And again, because you're thinking and you're shutting out that spiritual side. But when you wake up in the morning and you remember your dreams, you're connected. And that is a spirit guiding you about your own life, if that's the case, if it was a message, a dream about your life, your memories, or what you should be doing, versus a spirit loved one that has passed away, such as when I would see my great uncle watching over me. It would start out as a dream, as if somebody was watching me and staring at me and this weird, creepy feeling. And then when I would wake up, and I would see him. But yet he was influencing my dream. He was getting the wave and energy channel into that aspect of my dream. So I would wake up. So some of them are the spirits just telling you they're okay, telling you that they're alive and with you in a different way. Whenever you dream about a loved one, it's always important to look to see what they're doing, not what they're saying. Because a lot of times we don't hear them. We just see them. They're just hanging out. They're just there. So when we try and focus in on what they're trying to tell you, it could wake you up because you're trying too hard. So in any dream, especially someone who's passed away, look at what their hands are doing. Are they pointing somewhere? Are they pointing at a person that's alive? Are they showing you something? Are they presenting you something? What is their hands doing? Because when we can look and focus on their hands, then we can take in so much more information. Because when we're reaching out to somebody, we don't usually question that unless it's, somebody we don't want to see or experience. But when somebody's handing you something, it's like handing a gift. Most of us take it. But when we start talking, we start to think, all the judgments, all the issues, all the things about ourselves and that person starts to flood right back in, all the unresolved things, comments, things like that, especially somebody who's passed away. So we want to completely eliminate that. And the way, it's easy to say because you're probably thinking, well, I'm dreaming. How could I control that? When we take this information in, subconsciously it will start to stir up with us because our brains are massive, right? We don't even know half of what it does, or a quarter, or whatever the percentage is. But what ends up coming around is that information we put in there, we start to access it and we start to process it on a different level. So subconsciously it'll kick in. It may not kick in after the first dream with them after hearing this. It might take several dreams before that actually subconsciously kicks in. But after every dream, if you didn't notice that, make sure you make that connection that when you wake up, like, oh, I got to pay attention to their hands. I got to pay attention to their actions. What were they doing? Not what they were trying to say, not what their lips were doing. Look around. What was that imagery? What was happening? And then they'll tell you. Because sometimes, and again, this isn't all the time, but sometimes when a loved one is sitting at a kitchen table and they're chatting with somebody that's alive, it could mean that person is going to be passing soon and they're giving you a warning. So that way you could spend some time with them, to reach out to them and say hi, to reach out to them and say that you love them. You don't have to think that they're dying, because it may or may not be the case. But yet at the same time, there's no harm in telling somebody that you care, especially somebody who may be getting older and uncertain of how much time they actually have on this world. I always tell people, if somebody pops in your head, especially somebody you don't see on a day-to-day basis or talk to on a day-to-day basis, reach out to them, say hi. You don't have to ask anything, even somebody you don't really like. You can quickly just say, hey, I'm thinking about you. I hope you're okay. Yes, that can open a door into so much stuff that maybe you don't want to hear. But at the same time, maybe you do. Maybe that's not going to be that day. Everybody has a chance to not to be a negative person every moment of every day. Okay, so, and then let's see. So sometimes our dreams are from our spirit guide to help us know either we're on the right path or something positive is coming around the corner. to help you deal with some things. For myself, I had a dream before I found the place where I'm interning at. I was missing my son, so it started out as a nightmare, and I was seeing him as a child and playing and just being the awesome mom that I was to him, and how much I missed it and how much I longed for that again. And then I was surrounded by children, children that weren't my children, children that, were all different colors, all different races, all different backgrounds, all different ages. Children that called me mom. And I didn't understand it at the time. I just thought it was more of a, well, that's who I am. I love everybody for who they are, especially kids, especially animals. And that if a child wants to call me mom, please do. Like, I would love that. Now, I'm perfectly cool with that. Even if I just met you, like, you don't have to call me Miss Bonnie. You don't have to do that. You can call me mom if you want. And next thing I know, I have an internship at a group home where I'm around children of different ages. So a spirit guide was just telling me that love I can give to others. It doesn't have to be my own, since Morgan's not here physically anymore. Spiritually, I'm still his mom. As a client once said, parenting from a distance. It's the same thing when your child is passed and I still have the opportunity to do what I do. Because sometimes the spirit guides have to remind even me, because I'm not paying attention. Again, my cup gets full and I'm not listening. So they'll talk to me, especially in sleep. So sleep is the easiest. Sometimes they'll give you a message for a friend. And again, that thought of a person that pops in your head. That maybe you need to say hi. Maybe you need to reach out to them. Maybe you just need to just send good vibes, even if you don't want to reach out to them. Visualize the energy of positive love and understanding and beautiful compassion, especially for somebody who has struggles and problems, to find that within themselves. Sometimes a dream would look like a dream, but it's actually you astral projecting, which we talked about last week. So it feels like a dream until you're awake and moving around, and then things start to happen where, it's like deja vu, or it's, going to a place you've never been before, as I discussed last week. So sometimes dreams are truly astral projecting. It gets very in-depth with spiritual, which is why I wanted to make it its own separate thing. So nightmares from a spiritual perspective. For those who have abilities, regardless if it's turned on, regardless what channel, as I was saying with the good dreams, I smell smoke. Spirits will chime in here. Sometimes I can't ignore them. And I smell cigarette smoke. So I'm just telling you, it's not in my physical world. It's definitely spiritual, because now it's gone. And I can taste it. You can taste that smoke. Anyhow, so there's a spirit around me. I'm not going to get into that. We'll do spiritual sessions, mini sessions a different week, maybe 2 weeks, since for next week we're doing past lives. So nightmares. Nightmares occur because a spirit is communicating. And if it's a negative spirit, they're truly just trying to frighten you. They're trying to scare you. They're trying to make you feel terrible. They're trying to stop you from sleeping. There's so many things that they want to do. Now, why do they do this? Fear. They get more energy from us. Just like it takes more energy to be angry than it is to be happy. Same thing when it comes to spiritual activity. They get more energy when they can frighten us, when they can get us angry, when they can cause us to question a lot of things in our life, to steer us from a happy path, a compassionate path, a loving path, the negative side of things, right? So if they can do that to us, then they get more energy. What they do with that energy depends. Some will use it against you, create problems in the house, whether it's during the middle of the night after they've taken them from you, or the next day. Some of them will take it from you and then go next door, go down the street, go somewhere else, and use it against that person that they've been trying to torment. For some, it's what they're doing. and they're not doing anything with it except for to take it, to do it, to drain you, to cause so many problems. So nightmares could be from a negative spirit just doing what they do every day, all day. It is what it is. But then there's some nightmares where it's just a spirit next to you that's telling you how they died, but yet you're not realizing it's a spirit, whether it's because you don't realize you have abilities, or maybe you have abilities and you're just in that moment not really focusing there. So when you have a nightmare from a spirit, a positive spirit, it's not due to ill intention. It truly is 100% them communicating with you. And the nightmare could feel like you're having a heart attack. You're literally experiencing a heart attack. And I've felt them spiritually. I've even gone to the hospital not realizing it was spiritual. Your whole arm just gets very heavy and numb and pain in your chest, and you just don't feel right. And if you can't realize that it's a spirit that says, hey, this is how I died, and I'm just letting you know, then it's a nightmare. It's an experience that you cannot, you can't process outside of yourself. Some of that is losing your child. Now, in my case, I did lose a child. But if that happened to me before I lost my child, I can interpret that as losing my child, especially with the path that he was going down. Very real. But yet it's not what the spirit is trying to say to you. It's just that's what's happened to them, and they're just trying to talk to you. So how you know it's that? It's harder. Because when you wake up, you tend to think to yourself, well, I'm not having a heart attack, so I don't know what that was. That was just a nightmare. Because you've completely tuned out the spirit world that was around you when you woke up. It happens. A lot of times, a spirit that is providing you a message, let's say regarding losing my son, right? And it's not about my son, it's about this other spirit and losing their child, maybe by drowning, maybe by illness, some other way. And that the spirit is just there to say, hey, I know what you're going through. I know what it feels like. I just want you to know that I went through this too. Right? Because the biggest thing about spiritual communication is they see us differently in the dark. They see us resonating light differently. And so they know that we can communicate, even if we're unaware that we can. So they just want to say hi. They just want to tell their story. They just want to have a conversation. But what ends up happening is a lot of times when it comes to a nightmare and we don't realize it's a spiritual communication, is those feelings, especially if you lost a child, stirs up the guilt, stirs up the woulda, shoulda, coulda, for me at least. And I know this would be the same for everybody. It stirs up those negative emotions that we are still holding on to regarding whatever that situation was. So let's say, your dad dying of a heart attack, and then you now feel like you're having a heart attack. And yet, once you go through that and you're like, well, now I died just like my dad did, and I'm dying this way, and I didn't understand this when he was going through this, and that's all your guilt and unresolved things that you have towards that particular event in your life. And the spirit's not trying to make you feel that way, but you interpret it that way. And so that's when spiritual communication from a positive can become a negative, because you're internally dealing with things you've not resolved and things you didn't deal with. Night terrors. So we touched a little bit about night terrors. If you are having night terrors, you are 100% spiritually communicating. You're doing it during the day. You may not be doing it all day, but you have spiritual abilities that are not under control and are not putting up barriers to stop the spiritual activity from coming into play. Not doing it. You need to start getting it under control. You need to start protecting yourself, protecting your family if there's other people in the house, whether it's living people or living animals, but they're still family. No matter if it's a fur baby versus people. They are being affected more than you are when it comes to animals. But people, they could be oblivious to it all, but yet still not sleep well, still not process well, still have mood swings, still like just be off. But night terrors, from a spiritual perspective, if you have them, you have abilities and you need to get it under control. I teach people how to white light. I think if there's a video out there, if not, I'll check and I'll put it out there for people to access. I tell people how to do it all the time. Reach out to me. I can tell you how to do that as well. But you need to start to get your abilities at least under control from them processing. Well, whoever this smoker is, let me tell you, there's something wrong with their eye too, because this right eye is itchy and dry and it feels like something is stabbing it. So night terrors are horrible. And when you have them, you sleep terrible, you can't rest, the people around you can't rest. And it is a sign of either the medication and drugs that you might be on, and no judgment here, and whatever, not whatsoever, some physical trauma to your brain, as well as tightness, as we talked about last week with MFR trauma, can also be that. But most of the time, somebody's having night terrors, they have abilities, and they need to get it under control. Because those night terrors, they're terrible. You could feel like you're an alien, or the person next to you is an alien, and then you want to kill the person next to you, and you start acting out. And so that's why sometimes people have night terrors, and they're choking the person next to them, or they're punching them, or they're ripping their clothes off. There's so many reasons for acting out this, but the biggest thing, it's fear and the spiritual activities around you. Now, sometimes night terrors isn't just because there's a negative spirit around you. Sometimes it's a positive spirit, but yet you can't process it in a positive way. Your brain is just so fearful and so out of sorts and so stressed out that when this comes at you, it's a terror. When it could just simply be, grandma saying hi. But yet now you've turned it into this metamorphosis of an evil white witch that is coming after you and then possesses your partner next to you. It can get that real and that terrifying and that physical. So anybody who has night terrors, obviously, always look at a medical perspective first. I am not one to just say everything is spiritual related, because our bodies do experience trauma, whether it's physical, emotional, or mental. So it could be as simple as your brain is too tight from the fascia around it. It could be because you got hit on the head so bad during some event, whether it's a car accident, whether it's a fall, whatever the case is. But it hit you so hard that it changed that structure, bruised it, so many different things medically. So anybody who has night terrors, absolutely have your brain checked. Look, if they say things are inconclusive, that there's no damage, there's no issues there, then it could be fascia. Seek out a myofascial release therapist. Seek out a spiritual person to make sure it's not all of those things. Because a lot of times it's not just this or that. It's and. That's why I'm trying to say instead of but, and. Everything is and. And for most of us, even if it is spiritual, we've spent our life tight, closed off, scared, not understanding what's happening, not sleeping well. And as that happens, it creates physical issues as well. So I absolutely spiritually communicate. I don't have night terrors anymore. It's very rare that I have them ever since I got my abilities under control. But I'm still at times like this because I am surrounded by people at any given moment. So our body's naturally going to try and protect itself and close in on itself to get the space that we need. So night terrors, anybody who has them, it can be a very easy fix. It can't, without drugs, without medication, without even psychotherapy for some. You either need to change the physical and get your abilities under control. Let's see. So let's go to some questions real quick, because I believe that's mostly what I wanted to talk about when it comes to dreams. Yeah. Um, Good morning, everybody. I'm seeing that now. I dreamt of Jerry Seinfeld last week. Great show. Love that show for many reasons for me. There's a lot of puns in there and a lot of references that I just absolutely adore. Anybody who's never seen Jerry Seinfeld series, please go watch it because it is hilarious. A few days later, I noticed his new 1 hour show on Netflix. So that's again a spiritual communication, similar to when you're thinking of a movie and next thing you know you turn the TV on and it's playing, or you think of a song on the radio and next thing you know it's playing. The spirit is communicating with you, letting you know that that's happening. You're connected, whether it's for a brief moment, whether it's within dreams, whether you have abilities. So I wonder if it's a good show. I'm gonna have to go watch it because I'm just curious now. Sleep paralysis, the same. So again, sleep paralysis could be either or, could be medically or spiritually, because there are aspects within the body where our body does shut down. Same thing with defense mechanisms, and checking out of our body. If our soul's not in our body's not going to move, right? That's why people go into comas and don't move. So medically, we could have checked out for trauma, physically, emotionally, mentally trauma, and then versus spiritually, where we are in a paralysis because we're checked out spiritually, astral projecting, but yet still kind of conscious of what's going on. So maybe we're not fully checked out. But then as well as just what's around us is terrifying us to the point where we don't want to move, because that's part of the fight, flight, or freeze response. That is a natural defense mechanism that we all have. And so spiritually, if we're dreaming and we get into that state where I'm not going to move in our dream, I mean, if we don't remember our dream, then we wake up and it's like, we can't move. And then, of course, the body kicking back in. So there's many different reasons, but it definitely contributes spiritually and medically for sleep paralysis. Cranial sacral therapy. So, Rose, these are all good questions. I really love it. So cranial sacral therapy is treating the fascia system. It's the myofascial release practices that people, may have heard about or may not have heard about. But it's in the end, it's the cranial and then the tailbone. So we're treating both from head to toe, the core system. That takes, the main part of the body from head to tailbone. And what that does is release the fascia system. So when somebody is having a medical condition that's affecting the brain, that's creating sleep paralysis or night terrors or nightmares on a regular basis, from a medical perspective, getting the head treated, because it's one big system, the fascia system, will help relieve some of that pressure on the brain around the skull, that kind of thing. We're taught that our skulls fuse after birth, because babies are born with the soft spot, right? Because the skull hasn't fused yet. But what I've learned through my training as a myofascial release therapist is that's not actually true, that there's fascia between all those sutures, and it appears to be fused hard, but it's not. There's actual fascia between, which then allows some wiggle room. Not much, but still some room. What about dreaming of a living person dying? So good question, Jamie. That's one of two things. And that's where it's important to kind of see what's happening. If you know somebody has physical problems, health problems, and you dream that they're dying, and it's an everyday dream, which I almost forgot about the everyday dream. I don't know where it's at on my notes, but it's somewhere. So I'm going to get back to everyday dreams. Then most likely it's your fear about losing that person and unresolved issues. But if it's somebody who maybe has medical issues, but yet you dream about it like randomly. The person hasn't been on your mind, you haven't thought about that person, you're not really kind of like in the day-to-day of that thought process. Why would that pop into your dreams? Except for that means their time could be coming soon. Now, soon could be, relative to each person. For me, when I get somebody's dying soon, it's usually within a few months. But for some, it could be years. But yet they have to get through some of the processes that they haven't done yet with that person, whether it's forgiveness, whether it's compassion, whether it's going to see them. It's just the Spirit's giving you that opportunity to do what you need to do. So somebody dying that's still alive, it could be medically or spiritually, guilt of somebody, and it's a dream that you have all the time, or it's a dream occasionally. And if that's the case, it could mean that they're passing soon. So, but in the end, we all should love each other anyway and tell each other how much we care about them, even if we're mad at them. Even if it's hard to forgive somebody or allow somebody into our life, when we could take a step back and just accept them for them, no matter what that label is, no matter what it turns out to be, then we can kind of let go of some of that stuff anyway. So if somebody were to die unexpectedly, we have less guilt and we have less, animosity towards that. So I hope that answered your question on dying and living people. So one thing I did forget about, and I'm going to jump back into real quick, is some people have the same recurring dream every time that they dream. They don't recognize it. They don't know the people. They don't know the location. They don't know any of that. The reason you're having that dream is 99% of the time, and I'm never going to say anything 100%, only because there's so many factors, but 99.9% of the time, it is a past life that you need to re-experience because it's affecting you in your current life. So one that stands out to me is I knew somebody who was dreaming just about every night of their dreams that they remember of being at a shore house. And it's a nice day for the most part. And then the wind kicks up, the ocean kicks up. And next thing they know, they're trying to get out of the shore house with their kids and their pets. And they then wake up and they never remember what happened. They have that dream every day or every time they dream. That's spiritual communication in a sense, because the spirits could be guiding that person to pay attention to that life because it's significant to them in this life. Or it could be that because you're connected to the spirit world, you're re-experiencing that for yourself because you need to re-experience it for some reason in this life. So past lives are extremely important and sometimes come into dreams. So now I understand. Now I remember, I should say, why the spirits were telling me next week we should do past life conversation, because it ties into dreams and kind of seems to go from one to one. So if you have the same recurring dream over and over and over and over, and no details ever change, color, smell, sound, location, none of it, it is past life. And seek out somebody who can do a past life regression to help you bring that forward. And if you find somebody who does a past life regression, it shouldn't be about hypnosis where you don't remember anything. It should truly be a guidance where you are fully aware, and the past life regressionist is just guiding you to re-experience the experiences, to get it out in a safe environment so it can be processed through yourself as well as that therapist, so that way therapist knows how to guide you after you've experienced everything. It's how I do past life regressions. And I find it's more important for you to experience it and feel it than for me to just tell you, because I could tell you your past lives. I could tell you your dreams. I can interpret all your dreams if you tell me what they are. From a spiritual perspective, I can do that because your spirit guides, your family, whoever the spirit was, will communicate that, which I don't want to call anybody out necessarily, but this woman that I keep smelling smoke from, and the eye issue, I'm going to side message you because I know the name and I know you follow me on the business. But I'm going to side message you about this woman, okay? Because you need to take care of her. She's not a family, but she's tied to your kids, and we need to make her go away. So I'll side message you. Okay. All right. So yes, I think that was where. Sorry. Sometimes when they distract me, then it like totally distracts me, and I'm like completely lost. Okay. So yeah, I think that was it. I think that's all about dreams. So unless there's questions, any other questions, that would be it for today. And then, like I said, next week is past life regression. And if somebody wants to volunteer to be a part of a past life regression on video, we won't do it next weekend. We'll do it the following weekend. So, because I usually go for about an hour when I do a past life regression, and we can process it. It doesn't mean you have to be on screen if you just want your voice on it. But yeah, first one that volunteers, if somebody wants to do it, we will do it. Okay? All right. So until next week, have a good week. Know that we just need to keep smiling, keep trying, keep being, keep forgiving, keep loving.